There are men who are simply made to lead, made to influence the people around them in ways that others can't. Napoleon Bonaparte is known as one of these men, leading his country through multiple wars and other problems, but is he deserving of being called great? Napoleon said, "There is no immortality, but the memory that is left in the minds of men."
Napoleon Bonaparte is one of the most polarizing historical figures ever, due to his positive and negative contributions he gave to Europe and the French Revolution. Napoleon is seen by many as the greatest general of his time and possibly the greatest general of all time. But his power-hungry and cowardice acts have forced scholars to question his immortal mantle as this polarizing historical figure.
Napoleon Bonaparte was born on August 15th, 1769 in Ajaccio. He was the second of 8 surviving children, and later in his life he became a second lieutenant in an artillery regiment of the French army. The French Revolution began in 1789, and within 3 years, revolutionaries had overthrown the monarchy of the proclaimed French Republic.
Napoleon determined that France's naval forces were not yet ready to go up against the superior British Royal Navy. Instead, he advised that they should invade their trade routes in Egypt. Napoleon's troops scored a victory against Egypt's military rulers at the Battle of Pyramids in July of 1798, but it came as a price. He was stranded with a depleted navy after the war. Napoleon opted to abandon his army and return to France alone. In November of 1799, Napoleon was part of a group that successfully overthrew the French Directory. Napoleon became first consul, making him France's leading political figure.
And one of his most significant accomplishments was the Napoleonic Code, which streamlined the French legal system and continues to form the foundation of French civil law to this day. It embodied the principles of the Enlightenment, which was to show equality to all citizens, including religious tolerance and all. But it was backhanded many rules and laws that women in France had gotten. Males in households regained full authority over women, and from 1803 to 1815, France was engaged in the Napoleonic Wars, a series of major conflicts with various coalitions of European nations.
Sounds tough, Jim. Jack. Napoleon Bonaparte organized a coup d'etat and declared himself first consul. Napoleon was one of the first to ever single-handedly replace the government. He did, though, have the support of the military since he was their general and leader. So if the council or the monarchy would have disagreed, it would have been very bad for them since they had the whole military against them. So in fear of another revolution, the government just gave in without a fight and let Napoleon become their ruler.
Napoleon seemed like he was destined for greatness, for military success due to his rule as an emperor, but he did some terribly negative things that historians just can't ignore. Napoleon is seen as a large contributor of both good and bad things in history, but a few examples of the bad things he did were Napoleon refused to give equal rights to all French people, that included women and others, and he attempted to take over all of Europe after there had been a peace treaty, which he declined to sign. France was the only country that did not sign it. And Napoleon, which is now referred to as the Continental System, where he blocked any cargo from entering or leaving Britain, which forced their resources and supplies to diminish, trying to squander their economy.
It was a revenge act. He could have, because he could have signed the peace treaty like every other country in Europe, but not signing allowed him to take advantage of this blockade, and nobody else could help. Earlier, Britain had tried to do the same thing to France, and so it was just a revenge act on that part. Those who would try to help stop the blockade, he would start a war on them and destroy their country for trying to intervene. To protect himself from military forces, he attacked them first. His aggression was first admired, but his stubbornness led to many deaths. War ending in
there was a war that Napoleon started throughout most of Europe, and it didn't last very long because it ended in the winter in Russia, because he wasn't expecting such a cold winter, and in Russia it got very cold and millions died from this cold. But instead of fighting back and continuing on with the fight, he simply abandoned his army, and because of this he was exiled to a remote prison, but eventually escaped in an attempt to overthrow the government once again. This overthrow was stopped fairly quickly, and he was exiled a second and last time to an island where he eventually died of stomach cancer. Yep, that's...
Also, during his time, when he was thrown into a different place, he was thrown into an island called Elba.
All right. So when he was exiled this second time, before he died, he spent his entire time there seeking out power. And when he got this power, and when he got as in control as he could, he brought back slavery and was oppressive towards the people, not allowing women rights once again, and really just making the island a much worse place than when he came.
And Napoleon is a very polarizing historical figure. Some say he has led to many amazing advancements in today's society, changing the way that we govern our world, and he's helped spread democracy throughout Europe. But he has also single-handedly led to mass destruction and millions dead throughout his time as ruler and general of different countries. He claimed to be fighting for liberty and equality for all, but in fact he restricted rights of women and brought back slavery in the French colonies. Though some would agree and say that his contributions to Europe were very negative, an opposing view is that his leadership and territorial gain outweighs the negative that he brought towards Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.